Thank you for joining us. As I shared with you, if we didn't hear from the Commission, we would just talk about other things, a couple of other things that we want to talk about as far as organization is concerned. The one thing I would say is that if you only wanted to come to one, and not if we have a second one, so you can leave now so that you can come back next week when we have the accreditation. We haven't not received the letter yet from the Commission. They have 30 days before they have to give the letters. I was with them yesterday at some training, and they said that they're working on the letters, and they need to send all the letters out at the same time, so that causes a little bit of clog. And also, they have a lot of visits coming up this spring, so staff all over the state preparing for those visits with the teams that are going to visit. So they're pretty busy. But the 30 days should expire by the 12th of February. So I'm anticipating that we should know by the 12th and 13th. A couple of things that we can talk about is that as we look at, we are waiting and hoping that the letter will be here soon. We can't really guess what the letter will say, because the moment that you guess what the Commission is going to do, the Commission may not do what you think that they're going to do. So it's a bad thing to do that. But we know that we at least will need to send a report to the Commission sometime around October 2013, which is this year. That is because they will have, it will have been 3 years by October since they were here, or since we wrote to them. So we know that we're going to have to submit a midterm report to them. In the midterm report, we're going to have to talk about all the recommendations that they gave us, all 9 of them. Even though well, we may be okay, we still need to report whether or not we've continued to make progress on them. And also, we need to definitely talk about the ones that we didn't finish. For example, they had asked us to rewrite our mission statement. By the time they came, the mission statement was drafted. However, it had not gone to the board yet, so we need to provide that to them. And I think that as we provide it, one of the things that we also need to show is that we are already implementing the mission statement. So not just that we have done it, but we are actually implementing it. The second item that we did not touch on is the code of ethics. They had asked us to develop a code of ethics for all employees, and we started working on it. And then that was delayed a little bit because we wanted more input. And so we need to have that ready for them. When as far as the Code of Ethics is concerned, Kevin Anderson and Debbie Luttrell-Williams were chosen by Shared Governance to put the final touches on this document. And we're expecting that they will finish their work on the 15th of February, which should be sometime next week, right? Saturday? Friday. So by Friday, they should, of next week, they should be done. And then Shared Governance wants to approve it on the 20th of February. So we'll be okay with that, and I think that they have a couple of documents to work from, so we should be completely done with that. I think that there are certain things that we certainly should continue to work on. Our student learning outcomes and assessment, even though we did as much as we could in as quick a timeline as we could have done it, to be ready for not only the report that we needed to submit on student learning outcomes, but also for the review itself. I still think that we're not exactly where we need to be yet, and we need to continue to work on that. So I think that's something that Jean Thomas has sent information to faculty. We are encouraging adjunct faculty to be involved, and we want for us to continue to work on those things. So it's not good enough that we're on the right track. We want to make sure that we are moving from there, because you know what Will Rogers said, by being on the right track, you'll get run over if you don't keep moving. So we want to make sure that we are moving forward when it comes to being on the right track with SLO. We also we are about to implement program review, which the Senate approved about a month or two ago. It is really critical for us that we do that, and we do it well, because that's another thing that they'll be looking at. One of the other areas that the team did think that we were doing okay, but we needed to show more of what we're doing, is really that whole area of planning and tying planning to resources, to student learning outcomes, and all of that. So we have currently requests for proposals that are out. I think they're due February 14th, Valentine's Day.
With love.
Oh, with love. That's Peter said with love. So we need to make sure that we do those, and that we do our reviews expeditiously, because that was one of the things that they criticized us for, that we don't really get hung up on committee and never really get things moving. We just need to get in the habit of moving those things forward. I think that's one area that we can expect, whether it's right now or in the future, that we're going to have to report on. I think in many other areas, such as services to the centers, we did a pretty good job, which was recommendation 8. We did a pretty good job at that, but we need to continue to work on it. And as we start to talk about Measure Q, what we're going to do in the future, I think that references to what we're going to do at the centers, for the centers to expand services, expand facilities for them, I think those are important things for us to do, so that when we write the midterm report, we can show that we're on the right track on that. And I think it is really incumbent upon all of us, but particularly the deans of the centers, to make sure that we do not neglect talking about the centers, talking about what we need to do to get them moving. So I think that from what we're anticipating, what we need to do next, I think we have a lot of work to do. To get that done, Vice President White and I thought a lot about what to do, and we decided that it would be good for us to have someone who's going to be looking at this for us on an ongoing basis. And probably at this time, the Executive Committee of SCFA is reviewing a job description that we'd like to send out fairly soon to make sure we do that. If we wait until is Jeff blocking your view in Vacaville? Okay.
That's not weird.
He was. So what we want to do is to make sure that we have ongoing work on accreditation, because I have to tell you, by the time we got going last time, we were a little bit behind. We did catch up, and we kind of move as quickly as we could, but that's not, I mean, there are people who say they work well under pressure, but I don't think it's something that we need to keep doing. Even if we work well under pressure, I think we do need to plan, and we'll have better product when we do that. So what are some of the, what can we expect from not the final decision, not what the letter will say, but the potential is that we could be asked to submit a report in April, which is the reason why we do need to be ready in case they ask us for that. They may ask us to submit the report in October, because those are the two times that they really get the report. And together with the report in October, they may ask us to submit the report. The mid-year report will also be due. So I think that those are, the two possibilities that that we can have. But one way or the other, we will have a report that will be due. Anything, Diane, you want to add to accreditation coordinator or anything like that? Assessment?
Just so everybody knows,
you want to?
Sure, yes.
So you can see.
Regarding the accreditation and the SLOs, Dr. Laguerre did mention that Jean Thomas is working on this, and we're coordinating with the school coordinators to continue working with faculty, and especially not just on SLOs, but PLOs too, so that we're doing absolutely everything that the accreditation agency is expecting and analyzing our programs. And of course, program review will be part of that as well. I know CTE is the first group that's going to be going up to do this, and I'll be talking and asking Amy Obici to come and talk to the deans about this so that we can make sure that we implement that the way it should be as well. Do an excellent job. Any questions on that?
Yeah, any questions you may have on accreditation? I would be happy to entertain them. Fairfield? Can I ask questions then, if you're not asking me questions? I think in the area of the support services where we have service area outcomes, we can't slow down on them either. So Peter, I think that we need to get moving and make sure that we're there. And that's, we need to continue to do those things, not take too big of a rest after we have had a visit, so that we can continue to be ready for whenever the call comes for us to submit something to the commission. But I have to say that we have made a lot of progress, and we just need to continue to move forward. Okay, any questions? Vacaville, Vallejo?
Nothing here.
Nothing here, okay. Nothing in Vallejo?
Nothing here.
Okay, all right, so let's talk about next topic. I'll take the first one, and then Vice President White will take the second one. The second one being the reorganization we will implement comes July 1. The one that what I'm going to talk about is going to be a longer term issue. As you know, when I came in 2009, the college had already faced budget issues because the state started to cut our budget, and then we needed to make some decisions to see where and how we can keep the college running without having to lay off faculty or staff. And so what we had to do was to do some reorganization, and I started with the top tier of the administrative structure, which was among the vice presidents. At the time, we had 4 vice presidents, and we reduced them to 2. In reducing them to 2, I combined the academic affairs and student services. So that it was, to me, it wasn't an experiment because it's a model that I know extremely well. However, for the college, it was an experiment in that we hadn't done that yet, and we didn't know who exactly could come and do that. As we started the experiment, it didn't exactly work the way that I had intended it to work. And so we modified it a little bit. As also we needed to do more work in academic affairs, I asked then the executive vice president to do certain things, and I took on student services, a big part of student services. As we have vacancy in the executive vice president's office, I always like to look at vacancies as an opportunity to really refocus, check again, and see what we needed to do. So at this time, I have initiated some conversations on whether or not we don't need two people, one who would lead academic affairs for us and one who would lead student services. Now, I didn't necessarily say vice presidents. I said people who would lead, and so we want to have some discussions on that. In speaking with the student services administrators and staff, there are some mixed emotions about what they would like to see, but I think that overall they want for student services to be closer together, to be more effective, and I think that having leadership at the top, they want to see that. Even though I'm serving as their de facto vice president, and they always say, in all due respect to you, we really want someone else. And so, so I think that as our economic situation starts to be a little bit better, it's something that we really want to take a good look at. There have been a lot of comments, a lot of conversations in regard to workload, how difficult it is for deans to find, for faculty members to have access to their deans, and then for staff members to have access to the directors and deans and the like. And so really we feel that we do need to take a good look at the institution in general, but in particular look at academic affairs and student services and see what we should do in terms of top leadership for these two areas. So I wanted to share that with you. It's a topic that I really wanted to really initiate more broadly. In addition to academic affairs, the whole college should really know what it is that we are thinking about. And I wanted to bring that to your attention so that if you have, number one, you can be aware of what we are thinking about. And secondly, I'd like to have your input, your ideas about this. You can certainly email either me or whoever represents you, if you're faculty, Academic Senate. And Academic Senate is going to have a new acting president. Lene Hymas is going to be the acting Senate president, so feel free to reach out to her. You can reach out to the unions, leadership, or deans or vice presidents if you don't want to send something directly to me. We also have a suggestion box. Judy, we still have it, right? At the front of building 600. It has been used a few times. We have gotten some good suggestions from there. So if somebody wants to put something in the drop box at the entrance of 600, you should feel free to do that as well. But we want to really take our time during the spring semester to think about what it is that we want to do. And then starting with the fall, we'll conclude what we need to do and move forward. I also want to share with you, because you may be asking, or maybe not, in human resources, we have been without a permanent director for a little while, and I want to thank Charles for taking on the charge for us there. But I had gotten feedback from the field, meaning among human resources individuals, professionals, whereby they talked about what we could do to attract better candidates for our human resources office. So I took a proposal to shared governance, and what they voted on was to change the title of human resources from director to associate vice president, and also to have the office report to the president. And then with that, we're going to restart the search this spring and see what we get. We also had some great comments by a member of shared governance, a fairly new member of shared governance. We thought that there were certain things we needed to do for the recruitment that perhaps we did not do. So that person is charged to chair and shepherd the process for us. That was Vice President White. She was adamant about what we should do. And so she'll be helping us with that, and I'm very thrilled that she's going to help us. And I think, you know, there are other things that have been talked about in terms of, you know, how things are at the college, and I'm hoping that with whatever we get from accreditation, that it will be some pretty good news, and that that will start for people to start thinking of us different. But I must say that indeed our reputation is getting a little bit better out there, and maybe because of that we'll be able to attract better candidates. But we will do everything that we can to find the best HR associate vice president we can find for the college. So these are some of the updates. Deans, VP, did I miss anything that I should update on as far as? Okay. All right. You are on? Yes. So Vice President White will share with you what we're doing as far as reorganization.
Okay. Well, I wanted to take this opportunity also to mention a few things about the educational master plan, the facilities master plan. And my history here has sort of taught me that we see these things as sort of separate entities. Dr. Beer and I have talked a lot about how important it is that the educational master plan drive the facilities master plan. So I'll be doing a series of forums, and originally I thought maybe I would do separate ones on the ed master plan, the facilities master plan, and it occurred to me probably in the middle of the night that if the whole idea is closer integration, that I'll probably do a series of forums in which we look at both of those things and allow the faculty and staff to really think more carefully about how these two things will be webbed together so that we're truly integrating these two plans. In the same line, regarding reorganization, that's something else that Dr. Laguerre and I have talked a lot about. And again, my history at the college has kind of taught me that, and I was just mentioning to a dean this morning that we are always trying to run a lot on a little. We're always very thin in terms of our ranks, so we don't have a lot of what I call substructure that we need to be able to fulfill our mission and to do what it is that we need to do, all the things that we're expected to do. So it burns people out, and it really harms the institution, and it's not because we want to just fill the ranks of personnel for the sake of filling ranks of personnel. But as we're going through reorganization, one of the things we also want to try to do is think about what kind of substructure do we need. And when I think about substructure from the academic side of the house, I look at how hard these deans are working, and I knew as a faculty member how hard they were working, and now I can see it up close and personal every single day. And I don't know, it's great that they have with school coordinators, but maybe they need more. And so we're exploring the idea of department chairs. And because this is an item for negotiations, I'm not going to engage in what's called public bargaining. This is something that will have to be taken up with the union, but something that we're going to think about with them and maybe potentially negotiate with them, because that's the kind of structure that our deans really need. And again, no disrespect to the hardworking coordinators we have that are really, again, doing yeoman's work, but we have to think in much more stable ways. Coordinators come and then they go. They come when the budget's good and then they disappear. And I know the same thing happens in the classified ranks as well. You might start out with 3 administrative assistants and you're down to 1 and some federal work study students, and that's not what the deans need. That's not what our students need. So we really have to think about ways that we can enhance that substructure, but also to stabilize it. And those are the kinds of conversations that I want us to have as an institution, at least from the academic side of the house. And I would say, although student services is not my side of the house, I would say that the same kinds of conversations should be facilitated in that regard as well. So those are some of the things that I'll be working on, and of course collaborating with virtually all of you in this room to try to put into place. And I think as we move the college forward, the other thing we always have to be mindful of is assessing the impact of what we do. We have these reorganizations, and then I've often wondered, at what point do we stop and assess? We talk a lot about assessment in terms of student learning outcomes or program learning outcomes, but at what point institutionally do we assess where we are? Did that work? Did it work to have school coordinators, or did it not? Do you need more, or do you need fewer? Do you need more administrative assistance in a certain area? Do you need less? How well did it actually work that you created this structure? So I'm hoping that what we also put into our plans are intentional moments at which we pause for a few minutes, maybe for a few days or a few weeks, and think about this plan that we created and implemented, did it work? We have an academic reorganization. Did it work to have social and behavioral sciences off in another area with their own dean? Did that dean have enough of what they needed to do their job well? So I'm hoping that we create those kinds of intentional moments to stop, pause, think about, analyze the impact of what we've done, and especially to analyze how well it's serving our students, because ultimately that's why we're all here. So not only did it just serve us as employees well, but did it really get to the heart and soul of this institution? Is it serving that fundamental purpose too? So that's what I'm hoping that we can do as we move down the road here over the next weeks and months together. So, any questions about that?
Any change in the organization we're going to see because of what we will implement?
In the academic
Yeah, the academic reorg.
Just a few little, minor tweaks. I think journalism ended up somewhere over in the social science area, and it's back over into the liberal arts area, right, Jeff? And then the some of the academic success center functions and those things, the tutoring, athletic skills center, that will be coalesced around the academic success center, and that will be over in social and behavioral sciences too. And the purpose of that, as I understand it, does make a lot of sense, is to make sure that there's some sort of an equitable kind of workload. Some deans, I know in liberal arts, I know Jeff has a huge variety of all these different programs with the theater and arts and English and history and all those sorts of things, and it makes it very tough to manage. And then for the social science area, it's more standardized kind of curriculum, although they have their permutations, but that's a different kind of workload. So we're trying to measure out workload, and again, we want to be able to assess that. So for right now, distance education will also be over there, along with the student support programs and that kind of thing. But again, what I'm hoping we'll do is after we run this for a year, then we stop and we think about, we analyze how well did this work or how well did it not work, and do we need to make other adjustments, and if so, what's the data that supports those kinds of adjustments? I'm really kind of uncomfortable with the idea that we just lurch from reorg to reorg, and not do we just not assess where we're at, but also where's the data that supports what it is we're going to do, so we're not just operating on guesswork. I've seen reorganizations before, even before Dr. Laguerre's time, where we just based it on guesswork. Well, we think we need 2 administrative assistants, there you go. And we never stopped to think about, well, why do you need that? What's the ratio of faculty and students and to those particular support personnel? So I'm hoping as we talk about being a data-driven culture and developing that kind of a system here, that we really adhere to that, and we actually live that instead of just talking about it. So we have to do that with intention, so that's the goal here, at least for the next year or so. Well, I'm functioning in this capacity. Anything else you wanted me to address? Is that
Sounds good. Yeah,
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right, any questions about the reorgs, John?
Yeah, are you guys anticipating savings with this reorg, this version of the reorg?
Well, I think that's one of the things that we're going to have to assess. It kind of depends. I mean, if we create that substructure, ultimately, and again, I don't want to be bargaining in public, but if we create substructures that would have like department chairs, a lot of the costs would depend upon what that looks like. Are you talking release time? Are you talking salary? Are you talking some sort of stipend? So it's really hard to say how much you're saving in any particular reorg. Currently, of course, we were started with 4 vice presidents, and now we're down to 2 vice presidents. So that structure stays in place at least for now. And then what happens on the student services side of thing, it depends on, are you talking about associate vice president? Are you talking about full vice president? Are you talking about a series of directors? So I'm not trying to be obtuse, I'm just saying until you know what the structures really are and how much of that substructure you need, it's going to be very hard to cost out. But one of the things I can say that the district is doing a really good job at, I have to credit VP Ligioso and Peter Kamish and Aaron Vines and people that are involved in enrollment management too, is really being dedicated to costing things out. How much does it cost to run, you know, a late start? How much does it cost to run a summer school? How much does it cost to run this particular program? Not that the cost will drive the program, but so we're just more mindful of it as we do our planning. So I'm hopeful. I'm positive and pretty optimistic that we'll be able to keep that paradigm going as we move forward.
I think, John, the focus this time is not so much on how many jobs we need to save, but rather how effective we want for our employees, especially our administrators, to be, so that they can support the work that the faculty is doing. I think that's where we that's the attention that we are paying at this time.
And I think ultimately, it gets back to students too. I know that the deans are faced with student questions and student concerns every single day. And what our students deserve is that kind of attention, that one-on-one attention from the deans. And when they're so overwhelmed with so many other kinds of daily details, it makes it really hard for them to serve students the way I know they want to. So it is for the employees, but ultimately everything rests on what's going to serve our students best. So.
One thing that's coming our way, which we have not spoken much about at the college, but we're about to talk more about, is that whole student success task force implementation, whereby a whole lot more is being asked of us to do, and in particular of our students. And also they have been, I guess it's part of the student success as well, Congress thinks, that students shouldn't be getting financial aid forever, especially Pell Grant. We need to start educating our students. As you know, the budget that's submitted by the governor is asking that if after a student has taken 90 credits, if they want to take the 91st one or 92nd or whatever, they're going to have to pay full cost of instruction. That is a sea change. That is really, really big, whereby some of our students, they come to the college, they're comfortable. I have a young man who said that he loves the trees. He sits underneath them. He doesn't want to go anywhere. And he's been here, he's gotten so many degrees, and actually when he moved here, he didn't even go to high school. He didn't like the high schools. He's been here. He's been like one of our trees. He's been one of and that has created problems for me because his mother and I serve on the board of directors, and I can't ask the mother how he's doing because she's all mad at me because we keep him here too long. Well, if he comes back next year, which he told me that he's not coming back, but I don't believe it. He's going to have to start to pay a whole lot more than $46. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Junior, it's something like 200 and some for the out-of-state tuition.
189.
Okay, 189. So he's going to have to pay a whole lot more. Well, many of our students are not aware of that. We need many of us to really be able to focus on the student success, the success of the students. The students, when they come in, Student Success Task Force is asking that they have a plan. Well, we can't be running, I mean, we have to stop and really start focusing on the success of students. If we don't have enough people to help us do that, we're going to be dead. And what's also coming down the road is that our funding is going to be based on not how many students we have at the beginning of the semester, but how many students are left toward the end of the semester. So retention is going to be important. Success of the students is going to be important. So we do have some phenomenal things coming our way. It's hard to say. I was going to say that when they didn't give us money, when the state didn't give us money, they didn't put that kind of pressure on us. Or if they tried to, we said, well, we ain't got no money to do that. Now, because of the passage of Prop 30, they're looking at giving increased funding, and with that increased funding comes even more demands than we have had in the past. So if we're going to, I have to count on the deans and the vice presidents to make sure that things are running really well. They have to be able to focus. They have to have the time to talk with their faculty, and we need to have whatever support that they need in order to make that happen.
How many deans are we talking in the new reorganization?
What do we have, 6, I think.
We
I'm
have,
sorry, repeat the question?
How many deans do you have?
how many deans will there be in the new reorganization?
Academic deans?
Academic-
Deans in general.
Academic
Academic deans?
academic deans. We currently
And
have
then 3 others, right? Student services and the 2 centers?
the two centers,
For academic.
and then I think we're adding one, right?
We're adding one.
Yeah, we're adding one, and then we have an interim dean of nursing that we have, but that's going to
So
check
more
itself
in the
out.
health,
Yeah.
health and allied sciences or something like that.
So there will be 6 deans
Plus 6,
plus the center.
plus the center deans.
Anything else?
John?
Me again. With all these reorganizations and personnel changes, is that a concern for accreditation?
Accreditation doesn't really address whether or not you have change in personnel. They really want to know whether or not you have the capacity to run the institution. That's what their focus is. They know that people come and go. As they come and go, do you replace them so that you can continue to have to be effective? If you never replace them, then that's that's an issue. But as far as having changes, as far as reorganizing yourself, they expect you to question things, to evaluate things, and to make changes. So if you are stable, but you never question how things are, they may question that instead. But if you're making changes, it's they know some change will happen. If you make them willy-nilly, that's without thinking about them, then that's a problem.
I also recall several years ago when Barbara Vino herself came to address us, and I don't know how many of you may have attended that particular event. And that same question was posed to her, and she did remark a couple of things. She said, there's interim all over the state. It's not an unusual phenomenon. These things kind of come in waves as generations of leaders and faculty come and they move out of the system. But she said what ACCJC wants to see, and reasonably so, is some kind of stability even within the context of interim. When Dr. Laguerre is talking about capacity, it's like, yes, do you have the personnel that you need to carry out all the functions of the college and to do them well? And do you have people who are in those positions who are competent to do those positions? Do they know what they're doing when they're doing them? So it isn't just a matter of, she said something to the effect at that time of, you can have the same person in that job 20 years, and if they're not really doing the job well, then you might as well not have anybody there at all. You'd be better off with an interim than somebody who knew their job very well and knew and appreciated the institution and was dedicated to the institution. So I think that it was interesting the way that she contextualized that very question that you posed.
Yes, sir.
Is Solano stable?
Solano is stable to the extent of the funding that we have. We now have had a president for almost 4 full years. I think that was an area where you had a lot of rotation, and I think that you've been able to keep the same one, for 4 years. That's pretty good. So hopefully you'll keep that going. Speaking on
When are you leaving?
speaking on his behalf.
Shelf life is
I ain't going nowhere. I ain't going nowhere unless y'all want to. Even if you're kicking me out, I'm going to go kicking and screaming. Okay, so no, I think that in order to really make a big difference, you really have to have really stable stability, especially in 622. Is that my office number, Jude? 622. Yeah. 622. Yeah, 622. It's important to do that. Well, oh, that's yours. And over there too. But and then what you also have is with stability among your faculty. I think that that's really really important to have. And so I think as we add more faculty, we'll be even in a better place. But again, even if we have a new dean of science, we need to ask ourselves: is the person doing an excellent job? Doesn't matter how long the person has been there, because as Vice President White just noted, President Bino said, even if you have somebody who's been there for a long time, it may not be effective. You could have a dean of math who's only been on the job for less than a month, but she may be very effective in what she does, and and she is. So that that really helps you. So it's not really. So in terms of stability, it's not just the number of years that people are there, but rather how great they are in what they do. And I think we have that. Now, do we have room to grow in everything? And we are really a college in transition, and I think we're heading in the right direction, in my opinion. Thoughts, even if they're not questions. Is there anything you'd like for me to have talked about that I did not?
Dr. Gary, we should probably mention a little bit more about the student success initiative too, that you mentioned.
Oh, the student success.
Yeah, the one that keeps me up at night, yeah. So Dr. LeCare did mention the student success legislation that's coming down, it's SB 1456. And it's something that, as Dr. LeCare mentioned, is really huge. It's a major change in the way that we do business here. And I'm concerned that we don't get caught off guard the way we often have with other kinds of changes. So next year is what is called our planning year. And from my point of view, that means this year should be our planning out our plan. We should be having conversations about what next year is going to look like, instead of getting to November going, oh wow, we need a plan. So I'm hoping that this spring too, that's something else that we're beginning to take very seriously in terms of forums and having discussions, and I'll be working on that too to make sure that everybody's apprised of what's going on there, because the changes are huge. And just the whole matriculation process, how we bring students into the institution and then how you get them through the institution. Every single area of this campus is going to be impacted. And it doesn't matter whether you're talking facilities or OAR or teaching or administration. Every element of this campus is going to be impacted. So that's a large-scale conversation that we need to start having, and we need to start having it now. So.
And as you, one second, and Aaron, you want to say a couple of words about student success. But as you start thinking about this too, one sea change that's coming is that people used to get the BOG waiver, which is Board of Governors tuition fee waivers, whereby they didn't pay anything. And then they could do this, drop, blah, 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 just be here, be happy, and no problem. Now, it's going to be, if they don't get a certain GPA, they can't be here anymore. So what we're going to see, and we already started to see it in our enrollment, and people can take classes as many times as they want to, okay? And we have blocked them now. So what we're going to start seeing is a correction to our enrollment, whereby it's going to be that it's limited, the number of students that we have who are eligible to be here. I received a pretty nasty letter from a mother whom we graduated 40 years ago from here, 30 years ago. And her son was kicked out of the college because the son didn't perform. And when I read the letter, the son is 45 years old. But anyway, so I'm ready to respond. I'm so happy to respond to that letter. But the thing about it is that we're going to have to, from a federal standpoint, we can't have the students forever not perform. We have to stop them. And we're pretty lax about some of those rules, and now they have really come down hard on all of us. And so we're going to see enrollment starting to really shape up a little bit. Again, this is a time for us to also revamp what we are doing and make sure that we provide the best opportunities and services for our students.
I want to preface this comment by saying that the students are the most important thing in this. So when I ask my question, it's not that, oh my God, what's going to happen to me? But I've heard and read a lot about what's going to happen with the students, and you're saying this is going to affect all of us. How do you see this affecting, well, I'm curious as faculty, but staff, like where is that, how's that going to shake out? How are you seeing that shake out for all of us in our jobs, in our work, what we're doing here? I mean, for example, the retention thing, that changes a lot about the way, so do we start retaining no matter what? I mean, what are we, so what do you see that for on our side of it?
Yeah. Did you hear Vacuum and Vallejo? Did you hear the question or her question?
Speak that?
It was a long question.
It always is. It always is.
Ruth asked with that whole student success task force initiative thing. We talk about the students, how it's going to affect them. But how does that affect us as employees at the college? How does it affect faculty? How does it affect staff? In the case of faculty, if you know that, hey, we're going to be paid based on how many students we have, does that mean that we have to keep them regardless of what? I think that
and that's
was,
just one point. Exactly. That's one. Like, how do you see this changing?
But she keeps talking. So she says
that kind of thing was not made for people like me.
how do you see that changing? Well, I think that what I like about it, having gone through the same thing in the state of Minnesota many years ago. That was 1993 when we had student success in Minnesota. We went through the same thing, and we did just fine. Students perform well and what have you. It depends. We have to have high expectations for all students. That's what it and if we have high expectations, they're going to perform the way that they should. I always feel bad if I'm taking, when I teach, I see some students in my classes that are not taking advantage of what, I feel bad that I'm taking their money for nothing. And I think that's the way we should feel. If the students are here and they're not performing, there are many other students who are waiting to come in their place. We need to make sure that we provide places for them. I think from a perspective of staff and faculty, I think a lot of professional development opportunities for us to know what are some of the best research out there in terms of student retention. What are some of the small things we can do to retain students? I don't think that we should be retaining students just so that we can get money for them. We should be retaining them because that's the moral thing to do, and that is the right thing to do because they need to be educated for their lives, and that's why they are here. Sometimes when they come here, they forget why they are here. Some students come here, they apply for financial aid, and then before you know it, the financial aid take over the whole reason why they're here. Okay? Students are not here to get financial aid. Students are here to get an education. That's the first and foremost thing. So we need, on our side, we really need to beef up our knowledge of student retention, our knowledge of what we can do to help students to persist and help in that way. But at the end of the day, it's really something that the students need to be accountable for themselves. And so there is no way that we should pass students who are not successful. Because if we do that, number one, they know that they don't know anything and we let them pass. And they go out there and they tell their friends, oh, well, Solano Community College ain't got no standard. You can just go there and have no problem. You're going to pass and it's a joke and all of that. At the end of, when they turn, when they have a 45-year-old son, they probably have problems okay, being able to support them with high academic achievement and what have you. So we are not, if anything, we need to strengthen our standards, not lower them because we have the student task force.
And I think too, Ruth, that it really puts the onus on all of us to do very careful program analysis. If in my department we see half the students flunking out, we have to ask why. And if we see 100% of them all getting A's, we better ask what's going on. So I think we're just going to have to be much more focused and very meticulous in the way in which we analyze our programs and make adjustments that do hold students to standards. And that means we have to hold ourselves to really high standards too. You know, I think, you know, popcorn on Fridays and donuts on Mondays and that kind of stuff, you know, that might bring them in. That's not going to get them through, and that's not going to do anything for the reputation of the college. So I do think that we're going to have to really, we're going to have to hold the mirror up to ourselves, and not just to the students. They're going to be held accountable too, but the accountability really has to be with us. And to find ways to do what we can that's within our control. You know, Erin Vines and other people have been working with the Center for Urban Education, the Rossier School, and one of the things that they encourage us to think about is not all the things you don't have control over, but the things you do have control over. And there's lots we have control over. I don't think we have to water down anything, but I do think that we have to be much more careful about what we do and how we go about it and know why we're doing it and to make adjustments. And if we have impediments that are in students' ways, we need to be honest about that. We've set up these barriers. That's why they're not getting through. Is there something that we can do to eliminate that barrier or find another way around for that student that doesn't dilute the quality of the program? But we have to be really honest with ourselves about it. There's going to be some brutal conversations that probably are going to have to go on about what we're doing and why we're doing it as we move, you know, to bring students to this institution and see them successfully get out. But I think we can do it. I think we're up to the challenge.
I think to be focused on the success of students. If you may remember, or some of you won't, because you know that, in 1983, A Nation at Risk came out. And one of the statements that was made by A Nation at Risk is that you must provide and demand what is necessary for success. You must provide and demand what is necessary for success. And I'm going to embarrass one of our faculty members. There is a faculty member in this room who teaches organic chemistry, which is a very difficult subject. But she will do everything that needs to be done to help a student succeed. At the end of the day, if an F is what the student gets, well, that's what the student gets. But she will do everything and then demand that the person meets her expectations. And I think that's the kind of thing that we need. Dr. Vines, did you want to come up and talk about student success?
Okay.
Task force? Yeah. So this way we don't have to answer your question.
On the student services side, what we've been doing, the managers have met and talked about what recommendations we're responsible for, and we started to plan for it. We're in the beginning stages of it, but it's going to be huge on the student services side and what we have to do in order to make sure every student has an education plan, every student's orientation, and every student's assessed. So it's going to be a huge transition for us. We're currently going through the data analysis to see how much, in terms of faculty and staff, more so faculty, how much time do we have? Can we actually meet those obligations with what we currently have? And the jury's still out on that. We also, as Diane said, the planning year is very important because we have to get it right, because if we don't get it right, then we're funded on it. So it's important to this spring to work with the programmers to make sure that we're able to produce the reports necessary. There's also, as you probably heard, the registration priorities. That has to change, and so there's a recommendation from the Chancellor's Office. Barbara Fountain's working on that. There's also the equity scorecard, our scorecard, they're calling it. We have to implement the scorecard. I don't know, Peter, if you've got anything yet. I saw something today where it talked about different data that we have to submit by, I think, March 13th or 15th. March 15th might be standing out for a different reason. Yeah. March 13th. But we have to have that data available as well. So there is huge for student services, definitely. And do we have the resources in place to where we can actually meet the demand? That's what we have to find out. And if not, then we have to go begging to Julian and Dr. Laguerre of how we're going to do this. So I don't know if there's more that you want to say.
Actually, you don't have to beg. You can just submit a strategic proposal.
Let's do it the 14th of this month.
Yeah.
Can we have a next lunch or perfect?
So, having worked on basic skills with both you and Diane, a lot of the stuff we've worked on has been more prescriptive planning for the students, more cohort groups, Moja, first year experience. Those things kind of, Moja's doing well, but they kind of, fun day, they do limp, they need a lot of, do you see that we're gonna go more in the direction of trying to have, doing some of the stuff we worked on with basic skills, with the embedded tutors and all that kind of stuff? I'd love to see, is that the kind of work that we would continue?
I think those pathways and stackable
Yeah.
certificates and CTE and all those kinds of things, I mean, that's what the legislature's really looking at. You get students in and then you help them,
Right.
whatever pathway that is, get out of the institution, walk out with something, with a certificate, with the ability to transfer, with an AAT or an AST. So yeah, I mean, those kinds of things are a part of it. And they're not micromanaging and telling us you have to do, learning communities or, something like that. But they are saying that those kinds of strategic, programmatic changes that at your institution have been proven successful in getting students through and helping them become employed and moving on to four-year institutions, that's what we're going to have to do. So it's up to this institution, I think, as to what we want it to ultimately look like based on what we know about our students.
And a couple of things with the recommendations. One is all students who assess in basic skills will have an opportunity to take and be encouraged to take basic skills. And it might be, matter of fact, it says required, come to think of it. So do we have enough courses? I know we're doing better with our basic skills offering, but we're going to look at our assessment and then look at our course offering to make sure there's room for all the students that assess into the course. Also declaring majors. I think it's the second semester and then the third is required. So if students if they don't declare a major, then we have to force them to, which means programming and not letting them register until they declare a major. So there's a lot of things like that we're going to have to do, work with IT and making sure that Banner is prepared to handle that. Because again, the results, matriculation, we get matriculation dollars based on how many students register for Solano. Here, I think it's 2014, we're going to, or 15, I can't, is it 14 or 15? 14, we're going to get funding based on how many students have completed all this matriculation that we're speaking of.
Huge
Any
change.
questions?
Oh yeah. They're big. So I think that when the letter comes out next week, which I'm hoping that it does, or this week, within maybe 24 hours, we'll call you back and share with you what we have. So I'll be working hard to get it going. Okay. And if we don't have any more questions, I want to thank you all for being here. And we'll gather again next week or this week, depending on when it comes out. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, we have one question on this side of the room. Okay, we have a clarification that says Solano Community College District health plans or grandfather plans, therefore any average dependents are currently employed cannot be eligible for any other employee-sponsored group health care coverage. Okay, thank you. We got 2 minutes, less than a minute.